Facebook has over 950 million monthly active users around the globe. And nearly 550 million of those use our desktop products. But that's not the most interesting stat for me. The thing that I find really interesting is that our mobile users get twice the engagement. And when you think about it, this makes a lot of sense. Facebook is an inherently social platform, and your mobile phone is an inherently social device. You keep it with you all the time. It's the thing that you use to contact your friends, your family, and your loved ones. You take it with you wherever you go. But this causes problems, too, for app developers. Primarily, users use their mobile phones wherever they are. Commuting to work, on a busy train, walking down the street. They're distracted. We all know about designing for a small screen. But the interaction is more complex than that. And I think the two biggest problems facing mobile app developers today is driving users to your product, but then more importantly, getting them signed in with the minimum amount of friction. This is Viddy, an iPhone app. And this is how you sign into Viddy when you reach it for the first time. Two clicks, 5 seconds, and you've got a personalized experience pretty much immediately. And that is amazing. You can do that when you're being knocked about, when you're not paying attention, and when you can't focus on the task at hand. Try typing your email address into one of those tiny little keyboards. It just doesn't compare. Similarly, this is the Quora app on Android. Again, 2 clicks, 5 or 6 seconds, and the user is signed in and getting a personalized experience. Yeah, maybe 10 seconds. All right, you get the idea. Simon mentioned this earlier. Facebook is about distribution. And in the last 30 days, we drove 150 million installs from the native app stores, from Google Play and Apple's App Store. This growth is real. It's awesome. And I want to show you today how to bring that to your apps. Okay, so we're going to focus on 3 things. How you build it, the APIs that you need, how to get the maximum distribution from Facebook's products. We have the most downloaded app on both iOS and Android. So we have a lot of eyeballs using our app, and we can drive users to your app from us. And then finally, we'll touch on promotion. The Facebook SDK, the Facebook APIs, the Graph API, is available as simple HTTP. Again, we've been through this. And we have the 4 SDKs, PHP, JavaScript, Android, and iOS. So I'm going to be focusing on Android and iOS today and show you it's incredibly simple to get up and running with these SDKs. I'm going to be using the Social Cafe demo app that we saw earlier. And again, all the code is available on GitHub under GitHub/Facebook and GitHub/FBSamples. OK, so if we can dive into the demo laptop, please. Oh, that was quick. Well done. All right. Quicker than me. So I'll start with just a quick demo of what the app looks like. Just to show you that it's all real. So we start off opening the app. The first part is to log in with Facebook. So we perform an app switch into the Facebook app. And then because I've already authed the app, there's no permissions dialog. I'm straight in. And as you can see, the app has pulled my profile picture and my username, and I've got a personalized experience. Very similar for Android. If my emulator will wake up. All right. So we log in with Facebook. We perform an app switch, do the authentication, and then we're straight back into the app with my information, personalizing the experience. So let's look at the code. Starting with Android now, the Android SDK requires... Oh, where am I? Lost it already. Okay, here we go. Had the wrong line highlighted. Requires two objects to be instantiated. Firstly, a Facebook object, which you pass the app ID into, and then secondly, this async runner. And the async runner allows us to handle all the transport of the HTTP requests without blocking your UI thread. So in our main app class, we simply create one of those objects, and then to actually perform the login, it's a single line of code. We call the authorize method on our Facebook object, and then we pass in a login dialog listener, which is a callback function, and when the app switches back from Facebook into your application, we can save the state for future reference. So that's it. Authentication. One line of code. Really very simple. What about reading from the Graph API? As I said before, we use this async runner object, and we simply call its request method. We request the me endpoint, which, as we saw earlier, gets the data about the currently logged in user, and then we pass it another callback type. And this time, we pass the JSON, and we can cache the data directly in our application, so we don't have to do this again and again. And that's it. 2 lines of code. And we can personalize the experience for the user. Couldn't be any simpler. Okay, let's jump to Xcode. The iOS SDK is a little different. So we import the header directly into our app delegate. And then we use a couple of static classes to handle most of the work for us. So for authentication, we have an FB session object. And we call the static method openActiveSession with read permissions and other stuff. There's a Boolean for allowing a login UI, so you can re-log in a user without showing them any kind of UI if you've already had your permissions accepted. Or you can show them a UI bundle that we put in. And again, we use a block to act as a callback, and you can save the state so it's cached in the application. 1 line of code, 1 method. How about reading from the graph? So to read, we have an FB request connection class. And again, we call a static method. And this time, we have a shortcut specifically for calling the /me endpoint. And that's start for me with completion handler. Now, with the iOS SDK, we have a number of predefined objects for some of the most popular objects you can get back from the graph. So we have this FB graph user type. We don't have to do any parsing here at all of the JSON. It immediately comes back to us, and we can just call user.id and user.picture somewhere. I can't see it now. Again, we cache those in the app, and we've got a personalized experience in just a couple of lines of code. Okay, what about writing to the graph? So in my app, I can click on a drink that I want to order, put in something, just to prove it's actually live. And then when I click the order button, we'll post that back to Facebook and make the order. You may have noticed there we did another app switch. So to start with, I only requested read permissions directly in this access token. When you request post permissions, we do another app switch, we get a new token in exactly the same way as we saw with the Graph Explorer earlier. Really simple, really easy. Let's look at the code for that. So in Android, again, we use our async runner, and we make a request. Oops, too far. And again, as we saw before in Stefan's presentation, we call the app namespace, so Social Cafe, with an order action on the me endpoint. And this time, we just pass in that we want this to be a post request. Sharing back to Facebook, 1 line of code, really simple. I'm going to keep saying that. It's really simple. iOS. Where did you come from? So we use our FB request connection again. Nope, wrong tab, sorry. Use our FB request connection, but this time we call start for post with GraphPath. Exactly the same call, and again, we use a block as a callback. to handle getting the UID and making sure that everything worked correctly. A couple of lines of code, sharing to Facebook. It's really simple. OK, let's just check that worked. In fact, I'll prove it works on Android as well while we're at it. OK. So here we have my activity log. Just give it a quick refresh. And we can use the permalinks here to open the stories. And there we go. Easy. And as we saw before, users who are not on mobile will see this activity, and if they're on desktop, they can click through, and in this case, order a coffee themselves. But this is a mobile talk. So how can we make this better for mobile? OK, so that's where I want to talk about distribution. So I said before, distribution for developers is actually really quite hard. The native app stores on iOS and Google Play do a really good job of featuring the best apps, but they can't feature everybody. And that's OK. Think about how you installed most of the apps on your phone. You probably had a friend tell you how great that app is, and then you go and search for it in the App Store by typing in the name manually. Well, at Facebook, we think you can do better than that. So we've built a bunch of tools for getting you this distribution at scale. And I'm going to demonstrate just a few ways we can do that here. If we can jump back to the demo laptop, sorry. Thank you. OK, so I used the iOS app because the simulator is a little quicker than the Android emulator. But both of these, or all of these, work in exactly the same way on Android. OK, so the first thing we can do is search in the left-hand nav. And when a user clicks it, we'll app switch straight to your native app. Easy. Additionally, and I won't show this end-to-end, but users can access the App Center directly from their mobile device. Somewhere there. Ooh. And again, if we find your app in the App Center, we'll push you straight through to your native app. Additionally, where have I gone? For users who are engaged with your app a lot, we automatically put a bookmark in the left-hand nav to allow re-engagement. Here we go. And again, click on the bookmark. It's there automatically. Users can re-find your app, and we'll push them straight through to your app. So this is really important for re-engagement of existing users. But none of these things really help with finding new users. And this is where Timeline and the newsfeed come into their own. So when a user uses your application, as we saw before, when you publish that data back to Facebook, what you get in return is your data on the timeline of the user and in the newsfeed of the friends of the user. So these are people who may not have used your app before. Oops. So if we take a look here at my timeline, here I am, playing Conkers. It's a lot of fun. All right, and here you can see that 3 minutes ago, I ordered a cafe latte on the social cafe. If we click on that link, you can see I've been taken to the mobile web version of the application within the Facebook app. And that's pretty cool. But it could be better, because we know we've got a native app. We know we've got a native app. How do we drive the users directly to that app? Well, it turns out, as per usual, it's really very easy. All right, so here I am in the developer settings for my application. And you can see here we have this item called deep linking, and it's currently disabled. So I'm just going to enable that now for both iOS and Android. Save my changes. and then head back to Facebook. I need to reload my page. Come on, internet. All right. And this time, when I click on the Cafe Latte, I missed. When I click on the Cafe Latte, not only am I taken to the mobile app, but you'll notice I'm taken directly to the page that I bought, or the action was about. So if you were SoundCloud, for example, your friend has just listened to a song on SoundCloud on his desktop or his OS X app. You've seen that on his timeline, you've clicked on the link, and you're taken immediately to their SoundCloud native app where the sound will start playing immediately. This is a really powerful way to get distribution for free. So how did that happen? In Android, we use an intent when Facebook wants to open another app. And we simply pass in the data for that intent the URL of the object that the user clicked on. So you, as a developer, can simply pull out that target and then navigate to the correct screen in whatever way suits your application. So in this case, we have a splash, an order activity, which disappeared. Here we go. And that will open the order directly. Similarly for iOS, when the Facebook app opens your application, it makes a call to this method. Sorry about this, my screen is smaller this time round. I haven't got as much code on the screen. Okay, here we go. Application open URL. And we pass in, or a URL is passed in, which opens your application. And one of the parameters for that URL will be called target_URL. So you simply pass that back out, and that will contain the URL of the object that the user clicked on. And again, you can open whichever UI view controller represents that object. And it's that simple. Again, a couple of lines of code, and you've got native deep linking in your application. Okay, back to the slides, please. And as I said before, all of this is available online on GitHub, so you can check it out for yourself. I know I've gone through it fairly quickly today, but it's really straightforward, and if you get your hands on the code, I think you'll realize just how simple it is. Okay, so the final part of getting yourself the best possible growth is promotion. For every application that's integrated with Facebook, we have application insights. App insights allow you to measure the quality of your application by looking at key metrics, usage and performance, and a wealth of analytics on Open Graph sharing, demographic breakdowns, and user growth. If you haven't seen this before, I strongly encourage you to check it out for your application, because it's awesome. There's loads and loads of really good data that can help you figure out where best to target for maximum impact. And as Simon mentioned before, we provide sponsored stories. Every time you publish a story back to Facebook, that story goes in the newsfeed, and we show it to a certain percentage of your friends. You can choose to boost the number of friends that see that story, and that'll help you accelerate your growth curve. Okay, so a pretty quick one from me today. What I wanted to say, and the main point I wanted to get across, is that using the Android and iOS SDKs is really simple. We provide some really powerful distribution methods for getting new users and for keeping existing users engaged. And we drive 150 million installs from the native app stores every single month. Thank you.